This is The Business Experience Show, where we connect those who want to know more about digital marketing, social media, and business strategy with entrepreneurs who are succeeding in today's marketplace. Follow our blog, join our online network, or connect with us at thebusinessexperienceshow.com. And now, your host, Lisa Caprelli.
Welcome to the Business Experience Show. I'm Lisa Caprelli. With me is show producer Brian Gapps. We're excited to have our next guest in studio. He's been a professional actor for the last 25 years. He made his mark in Hollywood right out of college, UCLA, and hasn't looked back since. He's an actor, producer, writer, dancer, chef, father, and more. Welcome, Sean Kanan.
Thank you very much. Wait a second, dancer. You have to explain that it's because I did Dancing with the Stars in Italy. There is a big difference between someone who's a dancer and someone who's a contestant on Dancing with the Stars in Italy. At least in my case. But I had a really great time doing that. So I did learn a little bit, but I certainly would not consider myself a dancer.
So when you go out and take your walk
probably
dancing,
neither would millions of Italians.
Oh, really? But how about in America?
I don't know. I had a lot of fun, and it was something that I never thought I'd have the chance to do at then 40, I guess 2 years old, was to really learn to dance.
Right.
And I got the offer to go over to Italy and do that, and it was a kind of a life-changing experience.
Have you had any dance scenes on General Hospital?
Have I had any dance scenes on General Hospital? No, but I think I did have to dance. I had to do a slow dance with somebody on Bold and the Beautiful, but not yet on General Hospital.
Let's get a little bit into your background there. You started at college in the East Coast and then transferred to UCLA.
I did. I started at Boston University. I was studying political science, and I knew I wanted to be an actor. And obviously Los Angeles or New York are the two places that you want to go. And so I decided to transfer to UCLA and finish my political science degree, which I did. And kind of a funny thing happened on the way to the graduation ceremony. I wound up getting a studio movie, Karate Kid 3, and I had to sort of put college on hold for a little while I was doing the film. And I did go back and eventually finish, although I was on what's called the 7-year plan.
You know what? Hats off, you finished. So many people wouldn't have once they start getting...
Well, a lot of people go to college for 7 years. They just tend to call them doctors. But,
and so is Hollywood the lure that brought you to the West Coast?
Yeah, I wanted to get started with my acting career, so I figured this was the place to be.
So Karate Kid 3, I heard you did your own stunts.
I did.
And you got hurt.
I did. I started studying karate probably when I was about 13 years old, and a gentleman by the name of Fumio Demora was the head of my karate school, and he also happened to be Pat Morita's stunt double. He had doubled for him in the first 2 Karate Kids. And he said to me, listen, I think there's going to be an open call for the new bad guy for Karate Kid 3, and I know you're out in Hollywood trying to make it, and you should really try and pursue getting that part. And so I had already done a couple little things. I had my SAG card. I had done some television work. And so I went to the casting director's office and I said, listen, I know you're going to do this big open call. Could I maybe audition for you now so that I could avoid doing that? And she said, no. And so the next, I don't know, it was a day or two later, I showed up at this open call and there were maybe 2,000 people in line around the studio, waiting to get some kind of audition or meeting with the director. And I could see John Avildsen, who was the director, who had done all the Rocky films, the other Karate Kid films,
right.
Academy Award-winning director, was making his way up the line of young hopefuls. And I figured I had about 10 seconds to try and get this guy's attention, and I did. And
wow.
Long story short, I wound up getting the part.
It.
Yeah.
And you suffered injuries from
Yeah, I did. I had a really serious injury while I was doing the film. It actually, ironically, had nothing to do with martial arts. I was doing a stunt where I had to kind of jump from a stationary position about 3 feet away and land on my side, and they were going to match that shot together with a shot of me being thrown through a door. And so I did it over and over and over again, and the net effect was that I had perforated my intestine, and I was bleeding for about 5 or 6 days. Afterwards, we broke we had a break for about 2 weeks, and so I went to Las Vegas. And while I was in Vegas, I said to my friend, I think I'm gonna pass out.
Right.
And I did, and I came to, and the EMTs were there, and they said, we have to get you to the hospital right away. And it was Christmas Day, 1990. And the doctor said, listen, you've lost a lot of blood. We don't know if we can save your life. We're going to have to operate on you. And I said, what, you mean like Monday? And they said, no, in 15 minutes. And so my friend had to call my parents. They had to fly cross country in the middle of the night. And, they operated on me. And luckily, I made it. And then the next part of the battle began, which was keeping my part in the film. And they had shot just enough of me that they said, okay, we'll wait about a week for you to get better.
Right.
And
From watching the movie, you would never know that, obviously, because you're the bad boy, Mike Barnes.
It was something else. So they put me together with a guy from the Rams, the LA Rams at the time, and he rehabilitated me, and I wound up doing all of my own stunts in the film.
So would you do that again going forward as an actor? Do your own stunts?
Absolutely, and I have. I mean, there's there's certain things I won't do. I mean, I've done one fall from about 20 feet, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're a guy like me that doesn't like heights, suddenly 20 feet, it starts to take on like that Hitchcock shot effect. And I happened to be producing the film where I had to do this jump, and like all of my crew guys were standing down below, and I was like, oh God, moment of truth. I really have to do this.
Get rid of a phobia.
Yeah, otherwise basically the boss is going to look like a wimp, so I did it. But I would do them within reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your parents, and I think they had a lot to do with sort of who you became. It sounds like they really encouraged you to expand, and you didn't just step into the role in Karate Kid 3, but you had studied martial arts for many years.
I did. My parents have been an enormous influence in my life. I came from a pretty small town in western Pennsylvania. We actually lived about, I'd say, 5 or 6 miles from the Amish people. So, when I would bring friends to come home with me, it was absolutely not unusual to see like a horse and buggy go by. But my father, he's an interesting guy. He ran a fairly large business and went to the Wharton School of Business in Brown. And so I was always raised with sort of an eye towards having a business acumen. And as much as I love acting, I also enjoy, I guess I sort of like that entrepreneurial spirit, and I've tried to apply it to what I do in entertainment, which is probably why I got involved in producing as well. So
we're talking with Sean Kanan. You can go to his website, canansrules.com. So he has his own internet talk radio show with his beautiful wife, Michelle.
Every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time. And we have a great time. We've got a great show coming up this Wednesday. We're going to have Eric Braden on from the Young and the Restless.
Oh yeah.
And I hope everyone will tune in and follow us.
I saw some of your recent tweets, and I told Bryan, "Oh my God, he has so many cool people on his show. How awesome that is!"
Well, yeah, it must be the same for you guys, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like getting guests is always sort of the constant that you have to be doing, and it's a little easier for me because I work with a lot of these people, and they're nice enough to do this, but it's still sort of a...
Well, do you? I have to ask you this because we both have radio shows. I mean, I always have people say, oh, this person would make a great guest on your show, and all the time. And sometimes I'm like, well, I don't know if I want that person on my show. I mean, but you don't say that, right?
Right. I really try and get people on the show that I would want to talk to.
Right.
And a lot of times I'll be at an event. Events or charity functions are great places to find guests. So, and one of the things about me is I'm still at heart a fan. I mean, there's a lot of actors and a lot of people in, sports and entertainment that I'll see, and it just strikes a chord in me that I'm still that same fan that I was when I was a little kid going to the movies, when I was like 12 years old. And so I will go up to them and say, would you like to be a guest on our show?
Oh, everyone loves it.
They're very nice.
How can you not love it? What prompted you to have your own internet radio show, Sean?
I've been a guest, like I am today with you guys on so many radio shows, and I love the medium. I love radio. I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's very quick, and Michelle and I have a really fun rapport together. Mm-hmm. We have fun pretty much with everything that we do. Mm-hmm. And when I met Michelle, she has 4 children, and I have 1. And so we have a blended family with 5 children. And people seemed really interested in how we are able to have a really terrific marriage, a fun marriage, and still, be parents to 5 kids and still I work on a television show. We travel. We do all sorts of fun stuff. And even though it's kind of organized chaos and sometimes not so organized, we make it work. And so we talk a lot about what it's like to have a relationship in the insanity bowl of Hollywood.
Sure. Well, I could see you like being busy. I have a saying that if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
I like that. I'm gonna borrow that
totally.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And that's part of your entrepreneurial spirit, I think you got from your father.
Right.
It's not just the podcast, but you're an actor. You've produced movies. You've written things. You've hosted, emceed events.
Well, I think that the entertainment business has changed and morphed significantly, obviously, with the advent of social networking, a lot of the different mediums that now exist that didn't before. And I think that it's a bit of a double-edged sword. In one respect, it offers entertainers a greater array of options for things to be involved in. Mm-hmm. But I also think that the competition has become a lot stronger because now anybody basically with an iPhone and a YouTube account can go out and start movie making, and you actually are starting to see that certain stars, celebrities, what have you, are actually being culled from the world of either reality or YouTube stars, etc. And then they're going on to do bigger things. So I think you have to kind of have your fingers in a lot of different pies.
And a lot of that has to do with marketing.
Absolutely.
I mean, the social media and just everything. And that's what we're here to talk about week after week is the importance of marketing and
staying
taking
in front,
staying
in front, getting found when people go to Google. So I want to ask you as an actor, what have you seen technology and social media change in the last 2 years, and how have you adapted to that?
In the last 2 years, well, I am my wife and stepson Peter are definitely the VPs of technology in my world.
That's
because I'm not a super tech savvy guy. Sure. I'll be honest. I like to think that I'm pretty. I'm on my game when it comes to marketing, and I'm real good at delegating stuff like that to them. To answer your question, how has it changed in the last 2 years? I don't know specifically in the last 2 years, but I mean definitely in the last 4 to 5. Mm-hmm. With Twitter and Facebook was before that. But I mean now you're seeing that. It's not just young kids that have a Twitter account. It's not just young kids that have a Facebook account. I mean, my dad does. And I've explained to him, and my dad has written several books, and I've explained to him the concept that, it's all about creating and adding value to your brand and reaching, like you said, reaching as many people as you can. How do you do that? Well, you do it through social network. I guess one of the biggest changes in the last couple of years is that the printed word, whether it be a magazine or a newspaper, has absolutely taken a subordinate position to technology. I mean, more
140 characters for your tweet.
Right? And, more people are now obviously advertising online than they are in printed newspapers. And I think that's a paradigm shift. And so to stay in the game, you've really got to acclimate yourself to that arena.
And really what I always tell people is you also want to be in your business. And sometimes if you're spending too much time doing social media and trying to get found because you have to stay relevant, is you need to find someone who can do that for you. I have friends that are actors, and they say that it's almost a full-time job in itself to keep up with social media.
It is. I mean, it's imperative that you've got a communication reciprocity with your fans, the people that are being nice enough to invest themselves in your success and follow you. In my case on General Hospital, I communicate with them. I let them know that I appreciate it. I also am building a wider and wider net of supporters that when I go to do something or release a book or something like that, I now have thousands of people that I can let know.
And in your case, do you have a different social media account for your various projects and characters? How does that work? You have
it's funny you say that. My wife just, and again, because I'm not so tech savvy, my wife just informed me that you can now consolidate all of your Facebook accounts into one fan page account. People are probably out there saying, of course you can, idiot. It's been like that, but it's news to me. Anyway, I do.
appreciate that you're not perfect, by the way.
No, believe me. If you knew,
me too.
I am so far from perfect. Believe me.
Yeah.
But you know, I am. It's all about trying to integrate all of that stuff. So as you said, people can find you, and you can reach as many people as possible. And so for me, you know, it's about integrating my website with Twitter and Facebook, and people's ability to find me if they go to Amazon. Blah, blah, you know how it goes.
Well, before we take a break, and we're talking with Sean Kanan, he wrote the book The Modern Gentleman, Cooking and Entertaining with Sean Kanan. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Before we close into break, I want to talk about your beautiful wife, and that you don't you share that with the world.
Well, I don't. I share in some ways.
Well, but what
are you trying to say?
Do your women fans go, "Oh my God, Sean! Like I wish you were not married," or how do you handle your fan base there? Because you are a gorgeous guy, as you know.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I think as a guy that played sort of this, you know, Lothario on other soaps and you know, then got married, I think a lot of women find it attractive and they appreciate that, you know,
You can commit.
that I mean, you know, they're not all guys are dogs, and you know there's a lot to be said for commitment, and I mean I love being married, and it has enhanced my life on every single level. You know, not only having a wife, but having Michelle as my wife.
Yes.
And so for me, you know, that is my life. And I think, you know, when you're happy, it shows, and people sense that I'm happy. And I think that tends to, you know, hopefully make my life look more attractive.
We're talking with Sean Kanan. His website is kananrules.com, or you could get his book, Sean Kanan, themodernGentleman.com. Why are you laughing at me?
Kanan's Rules.
Kanan's Rules.
www.kanan. You say Kanan Rules.
Kanan's Rules.
Which he does, let's be honest. No.
Okay. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about The Modern Gentleman, cooking and entertaining with Sean Kanan, a man who writes a cookbook. We'll be right back. You're listening to Angels Radio, AM 830, KLAA. I'm Lisa Caprelli.
Philosophy number 72. Know your customers.
It sounds simple, yet to thrive, you must always know your customers, who they are, what they want, why they need you. Only then can you construct a compelling message that resonates, motivates, and stimulates action, strengthening your connection, solving their problem, and growing your bottom line.
Know your customers. From Orange Label Art and Advertising, generating thriving brand leaders. OrangeLabelAdvertising.com.
Has your website become a lazy employee? I'm Lisa Caprelli, author of the Amazon bestseller, Color Your Message, and consultant to forward-thinking CEOs. It's time to get your website performing for your business the way customers expect it to. We get serious about content, links, formatting, and everything the search engines expect to find with today's top-ranking websites. Glossy websites can help. Put your website back to work for your business. Visit glossywebsites.com for a free consultation. Write it down. That's glossywebsites.com.
This is The Business Experience Show, where we connect those who want to know more about digital marketing, social media, and business strategy with entrepreneurs who are succeeding in today's marketplace. Follow our blog, join our online network, or connect with us at thebusinessexperienceshow.com. And now, your host, Lisa Caprelli.
Welcome back to the Business Experience Show. I'm Lisa Caprelli. With me is show producer Bryan Gaps. We are talking with daytime TV bad boy Sean Kanan. In addition to acting and producing, Sean enjoys writing. In addition to writing for TV and film, you have also written The Modern Gentleman, Cooking and Entertaining with Sean Kanan, a man who writes a cookbook. Tell us how you got started in that.
Well, I've always had a passion for cooking, starting back from when I went to college. I didn't really have the money to take girls out for expensive dinners, but I figured if I could learn to cook really well, I could get them to come to me, and it seemed to work out pretty well. And but more importantly than that, I've always thought that food is it's a conduit for connection.
It's cooking is love in my family, in most families, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And, it's the old saying about, if you sit down with somebody and you break bread with them, it's easier to sort of form a bond. And it's true. There's something inherently connecting about having a meal with somebody, and when you actually cook that meal and provide it for them on the most visceral biological level, you're saying, I'm committed to your survival, I'm feeding you.
And it's so much more appreciated. I
think so too.
I love a man who cooks for me. I think it's sexy. It shows that you take the time. Yeah. I mean, sure, I'd love to go to Maestro's too, but taking the time to do something that's thoughtful and meaningful shows that you matter, you're worth it. Did you grow up with your family cooking?
My mother was always taking different cooking classes. She was fascinated with Chinese food cooking, which was great because I was fascinated with Chinese food. So that worked out really well. And, a lot of what I've learned to do, I'm not a trained cook or chef by any stretch of the imagination.
You're not perfect, again.
But I've taken little bits and pieces from.
Right.
I lived in Italy for a year and was fortunate enough to make very good friends with an Italian fellow who owned a hotel and kitchen, and learned from my mom, and I take a little here and a little there.
And it's not just about cooking, but it's about etiquette. It's about manners.
That's the book's a hybrid. It really is. It's got some very sort of offbeat chapters in it. There are definitely it'll teach you how to cook. Mm-hmm. Okay, but it also is a book for. To talk about the male psyche, I really think it's sort of a front row seat into the male psyche, and I think for the same reason that sometimes guys will, pick up a Cosmopolitan magazine and thumb through that, women will find this very interesting as well, and it's a great book for young guys. I think so many young guys. A lot of guys my age were raised by their moms because dad was off working.
Sure.
And so consequently, there's sometimes a little bit of a disconnect, and it's like, well, am I supposed to be the gentleman that pulls the chair out for the women and opens the door? But yet, 15, 20 years later, when I get into the dating world and I do that, sometimes women say, well, I don't need you to do that for me. And so it causes some confusion for guys.
Right.
And so they're left with, well, am I supposed to be this guy or that guy?
Right.
And I guess part of what I talk about in the book is teaching guys to be, self-confident gentlemen without being doormats.
Right. Good point.
And a cause that's important to you is anti-bullying.
For sure.
And also you talk about giving young men some sort of direction to fill perhaps a void that they're filling with bad behavior.
Absolutely. As a young guy growing up, as a little guy growing up, I was unfortunately subjected to a lot of bullying. And I think that's probably what the impetus of why I got involved in the martial arts. And I think that young boys that are taught to be gentlemen and that are taught that every woman is somebody's mother, sister, daughter, etc., and taught to treat other guys with respect, grow up to be gentlemen. And I think that there's a lot of information in this book that helps put them on that path.
I like someone wrote in the back here, Justin Chon, an actor from the Twilight Saga, wrote about your book. Sean's book gives single clowns like me the courage to step into the kitchen and actually do something besides stand around. With his recipes and advice, we may even be able to impress a girl or two. And so for you listeners listening, Sean Kanan, his website is SeanKanan,
Yes.
And there's recipes in here. There's lots of advice, experience, as he says.
Right.
There are a lot of great tips in there on what to do if you've messed up.
Right.
Where you talk about if you've salted something too much.
You throw a potato in.
Throw a potato in.
Sure.
You talk about how to stop pasta from overboiling,
right.
which I always do that. And what do you do? What's a simple trick?
What? You tell me. You read the book.
Yeah, page 19.
Place a
wooden spoon.
You put a wooden spoon.
right across.
I haven't even tried. I saw
Yeah,
that.
you just put that right across.
And it stops it? Okay.
It does.
Imagine that.
It
Drop
does.
a lettuce leaf into a pot of soup to absorb the excess
The
fat.
excess fat, yeah. You get that sort of that orangish fat on top.
Yeah.
You put a lettuce leaf or a cabbage leaf, and it takes it right
I
out.
bet
That page alone was more important to me than the recipes.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Imagine
idea.
that. We're talking about lettuce leaves on Angels Radio, AMA 30 KLA, probably
Who
the
knew,
first
right?
time, right? So don't just set the table, set the mood. Why did you come up with that slogan?
Well, I think when you're having guests or a guest over to your place for a meal, the culinary aspect of the meal is just one aspect. You want to try and appeal to all the different senses, and I think one of the things that I talk about in the book is, say for instance you're having a young lady come over for dinner or a guy come over for dinner, what have you, and they may have worked hard all day long in a little cubicle, and you want them to come over, and you sort of want to create the illusion of being sort of in another place. You want to take somebody away on a bit of a journey with both the meal and the smells and everything, and so you want to create that whole atmosphere that appeals not just to taste, but to the other senses, the olfactory, and it goes beyond just having fresh flowers. One thing I always talk about is have a big bowl of fresh lemons in the room. It gives off a beautiful, clean smell.
God, you needed to educate all the guys
well,
I dated.
You got to get the book. Pick up the book.
It's called The Modern Gentleman, Cooking and
Entertaining
Entertaining with Sean Kanan. Yeah. And if you have someone graduating, that's a great graduation gift.
Such a great thing to throw in a young guy's suitcase when you're sending him to school. Because here's the bottom line. My good buddy Tom Cruise said this in a little movie called Risky Business. He said, women can smell inexperience. And it's true. I mean, they know a guy who knows. And if a young guy goes to college and has read this book and has learned a few things, there's going to be a marked difference in his college experience. I promise you.
Now, we had a question from one of our fans on Facebook. Dr. Scott Gebhardt wants to know, what is your go-to meal if you want to melt the woman that you're with? You just want to melt her heart. What's your go-to meal?
Well, I like to do a little recon. I like to find out maybe where the woman's from, if there was something from her childhood
that she's vegan.
That's an excellent point. You got to start there. You don't want to cook a steak for somebody that's a vegetarian. You want to find out what her dietary wants and needs are, and use that as a jumping off point. My sort of go-to meal is I love to do couscous with dried fruit and nuts and grilled vegetables with spiced lamb chops over top. Lamb chops are one of those things that are really easy to make. You broil them on each side for about 3-4 minutes. They're easy to season. I usually like to use a Ziploc bag. I throw my marinade in there, shake it up, let them sit for an hour, and it's real easy to make, and it looks very high-end. It's delicious, and it's not so filling because, you really don't want to put a 1-pound steak into somebody if you want to go dancing or something after. You know what I mean?
Right.
You get too lethargic. So it's delicious, easy to make.
There you go. Thank you, Dr. Scott Gebhardt, and you can tweet us your questions for our next show.
And as if there's not enough for guys to be jealous of you about, you've had to do this now. You come out with the cookbook. You're just making us look bad on all sides.
No, come on. I'm about making everybody look better. That's what the book is about. It's about really being the best you that you can be. And I think, a lot of times guys have been made to feel like they're inept and they're bumbling, and it's not that guys are inept and bumbling. They just have never had anyone to show them. Like, women have had Oprah, and they've had Martha or Rachel Ray, and all of these other iconic women who have showed women how to do a lot of this stuff, and nobody really has been around to show guys. And a lot of guys want to learn, and a lot of the skill set that women often lament that guys don't have, it's really not their fault. No one's ever shown it to them, and that's what I do in the book.
So being a producer, an actor, and now an author, which hat do you decide you're going to put on?
It's so funny now that Michelle and I work together, and Michelle has such a different skill set than I have. She thinks in a very linear, logical, methodical way, and that went bye-bye with me probably around the time I took geometry.
Okay. So would you say you two are somewhat opposites, Sean?
No, we're actually very similar in a lot of ways. Just when it comes to that one aspect of how we work at accomplishing a goal, and her skill set complements mine so well that she's able to do a lot of the stuff that I can do, but maybe sort of didn't like or struggled to do. She does it gracefully and easily, and I tend to do a few of the things that she maybe would rather not do, and together we usually accomplish what we set out to do.
Well, congratulations on your family and your success.
Thank you.
Again, Sean's website is canansrules.com, K-A-N-A-N-S rules.com. He has his own internet talk show. You want to follow him as well.
What did you learn with your time in Italy with regard to either cooking or lifestyle?
I learned so much. The Italians really work to live, and I think Americans, we live to work. And I don't know that any one is better than the other, but I think that it's definitely important to take a look at how each other's cultures exist and maybe move just a smidge towards the middle. There's just such a vivaciousness to the way that I think Europeans live their lives, but there's also such a tremendous work ethic and tenacity that we have as Americans that that will always be a part of me. And I think that what I walked away with was really maintaining the strengths that I learned here, the best of each.
So when you were in Italy, did you find your work lifestyle changing? Like you adapting more? Like, hey, I can actually have more fun.
I always have fun.
But more fun.
My having fun has never been a problem in my life. No, it was oddly enough. I traveled significantly everywhere from the South China Sea to Brazil by the time I was about 18 years old, but I'd never lived in another country. So this was the first time that I was actually living in another country. I've studied Italian. I speak pretty well.
Yeah, you put that in your book about Italian.
And it's an interesting experience living alone in another country. It kind of made me think of that Sting song. What is it? An Englishman in New York or whatever. Because as amazing and incredible as it is, and everything's a feast, for your senses, there are times when it's actually kind of lonely and alienating, And I got the full experience. I got the good and I got the kind of the challenging, and it teaches you a lot about yourself.
Did you know you were going to write this book when you were in Italy? Did you have this plan that I need to write a book?
I knew I was going to write
recipes.
I knew I was going to write a book,
Mm-hmm.
and it was going to have something to do with the subject matter. But I was really working on another book, which is the book that I'm working on right now, that has nothing to do with this.
And I have to say, you told me that you wrote this book in a month.
I did write it in a month because what happened was I was working on another book, but I also pitched this idea to the publisher, and they really glommed onto this idea, and they said, we want this book. And I said, okay, the only way that I'll do this is if I promise you, I'll give you a manuscript within, I think it was 30 days, because I know myself. If I said, look, I'll get it to you in 6 months, it just wasn't going to happen.
If you want something done, give it to a busy person.
I literally locked myself in my bedroom with Michelle, which, not the worst thing right there. And I wrote the book. I bounced ideas off Michelle constantly. Michelle did all the photography for the book. We made all the food, ate it, put on 15 pounds.
Oh my God!
It was a really great experience.
And then you talk about, in your book, you talk about the art of war, you refer to that, and then you talk about the business meal, and the devil is in the details. And since this is the Business Experience Show, tell us what the business meal should consist of.
Well, I think the idea of a business meal is deciding what, under the guise of a social situation, whether or not you're going to be able to have a business relationship with somebody. And for me, if I'm going to have a business lunch or dinner with somebody, and generally they're lunches, I like to do a little recon again. I like to go and make sure that it's a restaurant that I've been to before, that they know me, that they know that I've got an important meeting there so that I get the proper attention. And you definitely want to compensate them for doing this. You want to maybe say hello to the guy that's going to be your waiter if you're able to. Certainly introduce yourself to the manager. Give him a nice tip. Tell him it's an important meal and that you expect a certain level of attention throughout the meal. You want to make sure, again, that it's a place that your business associate, you're not going to take a vegan to a sushi restaurant.
Sean, one final question. What do you want to be known for? If you could sum that up in a sentence.
That's a tough one. I'd like to be known for somebody that inspired lots of people.
Good answer. Well, thanks for being with us today. We covered so much. Sean Kanan,
really
actor, producer, writer. Okay, we won't say dancer. Chef,
definitely not a
father, internet talk show with his beautiful wife, Michelle. Canansrules.com. That's K-A-N-A-N-S rules.com. You also want to get a copy of his book at Sean Kanan, themodern.gentleman.com. I'm Lisa Caprelli, Bryan Gapps.
Bryan, thank you so much.
Thanks for being with us. It's buzz. It goes by quick. You're listening to Angels Radio, AM 830, KLAA.